Hello. It's some dust or something. I'm here today to talk about the Amargasaurus with you, and to help me with that, I have Maya here. Maya is my Amargasaurus here on Officials, and this is a really cool dinosaur. It's a cool dinosaur for a few reasons, the biggest probably being that the Amargasaurus is the only official sauropod in Path of Titans at this point. And that means that when this thing came out, it was extremely popular, and that died out really quickly, because unfortunately, for the longest time, the Amargasaurus just had no way to defend itself. It was bad in a few really key ways that kept people from really enjoying this thing, and so it was really rare for a long time. In my last video I made on the Amargasaurus some months ago, I called it the lunchbox dinosaur, I called it an endangered species, and you know, the past few updates have been pretty kind to the Amargasaurus. I think it's gotten a lot of help that it really needs, but it still struggles with a few things. So we're going to talk about everything you need to know about this dino, starting with its stats. The Amargasaurus has a pretty bulky stat spread. It has the same HP as the Eotriceratops and the Iguanodon at 800, which is pretty impressive, honestly. The only downside being that its combat weight is lower than either of them. Its combat weight falls below Iguanodon and Stegosaurus, which both share 5,000. The Amargasaurus here is a few hundred below that. So you would think, you know, if they're just trading equal blows, that the Amargasaurus is sure to lose, but it does get a cool ability to help offset this lower combat weight. As you can see, I've got these spines on my neck. And that's really cool because the Amargasaurus, kind of like the Kintro, if you attack it on those spines, or if it does like a headbutt and hits you with those spines, it is going to inflict bleed. Pretty decent bleed, actually. And I used to think it was only on the subspecies with the spikes, but now, if I'm not mistaken, all the subspecies, if bitten in the neck, are going to inflict bleed. So even though that doesn't really bulk you up, it does give you a little something extra in the defensive department. If we're talking about the mobility stats on the Amargasaurus, this is where it kind of struggles. It is the second slowest land sprint in the game if you're disregarding Kaiwekia. The only thing slower than it when it comes to land sprinting is Anodonto. Okay, so anything else in the game can catch up to you. Now, it is very stamina friendly. You can run for a very long time, and it's not going to use up much stamina. This thing, in my opinion, is a pretty good swimmer, actually. But whenever it comes to its land speed, you can get run down by apexes, and that is a huge problem for something that has no chance of really fighting apexes. I think even against something like a Dinocurus, which is among the more frail, you know, up there with like an EO that doesn't know how to face tank, but I digress. Even a Dinocurus can kill an Amarga. But the Amarga did get a few tricks we're going to talk about whenever we get into the kit on this thing. For now, just know, unfortunately, the Amargasaurus is not fast enough to get away from apexes. That is a huge problem. And so I highly recommend, if you're going to be playing this thing on official or anywhere where fights can be instigated and you have no say in it, maybe get a herd, because a solo Amarg isn't going to kill an apex, and a solo Amarg probably isn't going to get away from an apex either. Now, we're going to talk about the kit a little bit. You can see I'm running 3 attacks down there on my bar. The first is a headbutt, like you just saw there. Like I said, you hit something like that, it's going to inflict a little bit of bleed. It's also got a tail attack, and this tail attack, as you can see, it hits pretty low, which is great. You know, really good for taking on those mid-tiers that are trying to gang up on you. It does pretty decent damage. Again, your combat weight helps with that a lot. But this is the big one, this one right here. The Amarg Stomp has been buffed. I never used to use Stomps. I always said, you know, Stomps are too easy to see coming. They're too hard to get the payoff, even though they do have a really high attack. You basically have to be cornered and be baiting something into attacking you to land an effective Stomp. Not anymore. With the AoE, you actually have a bit of reach, and they did one better. You know, if you're moving, you can't be sprinting to do this, but if you're just walking, you can stomp and keep moving. You don't have to stop moving to stomp anymore, which is awesome for closing the distance maybe, or hitting something that's trying to turn and run away really quick and get a hit off. That stomp's going to do insane damage. I've seen Amargs absolutely melt through pretty impressive dinos. Like, if we're going to talk about matchups with that stomp now being buffed, and the HP was buffed as well, I might add. Like I said, it's 800 now. I don't think it used to be that high. The Amargasaurus, if you're running like a double defense Amarg, which is not what this is, but that is sort of the meta right now for this thing, you would be surprised. You can take a lot of hits and you can get a lot of those stomps off, and I've seen it melt through Alos and Sukos. I've seen it melt through any of the mid tiers. Like, it does some really solid damage. Even against Apexes, you can do, you can give them a walloping. I would say the only things you really have to look out for, because that stomp does, as you can see, takes a little bit of stamina there, and you're a stamina friendly dino. Like, your recovery is pretty decent, your drain's not bad, all that kind of stuff. But watch out for, you know, taking too much venom. Obviously watch out for bone breaks, but otherwise the Amarg can handle the mid tiers and can put up a pretty decent fight against sub apexes. Just like I said, don't be expecting to run away from anything except for an Anodonto, I guess. Let's look at the rest of this thing's kit here. Going over to abilities, like I said, you get the headbutt, can be used while running, yada yada. So you do have a few things on senses. You can either go with Sturdy, which makes you immune to knockback, or Lone Survivor, which I don't know why I don't have this equipped. Yeah, I didn't have enough for it when it came out. Definitely go with the Lone Survivor. Nothing's going to be doing enough knockback to you with your combat weight to really matter. This increased armor and maneuverability when not in a group is a much bigger deal. Like, you can be in your group still, just don't group up with them. Just be buddies, but don't group up, and you can get that benefit. Definitely go for Lone Survivor. Anything that has this, you know, the Packy, the Kent, the Amarg, they all benefit greatly from it. On the front limb, you get that stomp. Highly recommend you go with that. Now that you can move and it's AoE, you only get herbivore. When it comes to hide, you can get resilient scales to increase bleed and venom healing. Obviously, I'm way behind apparently on buying abilities, but just showing you what you can get. And then the tail attack. Yeah, it says causes slight damage. Does pretty decent damage to anything small. Like I said, it hits low. It hits really wide. It's like a full... How much is that? That's more than 180 degrees. That's like a really wide hitting attack as well. And with all that out of the way, I guess we'll get into the calls and animations here. Now, this is where I think the Amargasaurus really starts to shine. This thing has a lot of personality. As you can see, the turn isn't that good either. This thing has a ton of personality in the way that it looks and in the way that it emotes. It has some of the most beautiful calls, starting with the broadcast here. Downright majestic. Then you got the heart call. It does the weird Barsboldia, like, head inflation thing. Here's your aggro. Your alert. Your low call. And when it comes to animations, all you get is a shake it off. And a look around. You want to talk about skins on this thing, it also... Oh, let me turn that off. Also has some pretty cool skins. You can go with the default here. It's a little tricolor forest sort of deal. You can also get the dappled, reticulated, make you look like a giraffe. I got this because my wife is a huge fan of giraffes. They're her favorite animal. Just felt right. You can get the patchy. Not a bad skin. Leaf litter. Some purples, some greens in there. A knoll. Aurora. I always have trouble with that. It's the two R's right next to each other. Aurora. It's hard. Here's Fern. Pretty nice. Crowned. And mind you, this is a female, so she's not as vibrant as the males would be, but melanistic, albino, and a really solid backer skin. You get this tribal thing going. It looks really cool. When I first started playing Path of Titans, the Amarga had just dropped, and I can't tell you how many of these exact, like, skinned Amargas I saw. When it comes to subspecies, I already mentioned, right now, double defense is probably the best way to go. I think I'm running a plus attack on this one, which is fine too if you want to speed things up, but in my opinion, you're better for being able to eat up those hits and get more stomps in. I think you fall pretty snugly, sort of lower in the sub-apex category. I think you can handle the carnivorous sub-apexes pretty easily. The herbivorous ones, you know, Iggy and Stego, they might give you more trouble, but all in all, this thing has grown leaps and bounds. I still won't say it's incredible, but it's at least playable now. Just know, if an Honorary Rex sees you, you may not be able to get away, which sucks for any dino. But that about does it for the Amargasaurus in Path of Titans. Really cool dino. I hope this video was informative. I hope it helped you out, and most of all, I hope you enjoyed. But thank you all so much for watching, and have a great day.